So it's going to be pretty informal. We're going to have people trickling in as we talk, but we're going to go ahead and have Dr. Dooley, who's a physician in Detroit, Michigan, and is part of National Surrogate Healthcare Team. She's going to talk a little bit about Medicare for All in our healthcare system in the U.S., and then we're going to have Dr. Lighty. We're going to have Michael Lighty, who's been a healthcare expert for about 25 years and is an expert in Medicare for All policy and works for the campaign doing Medicare for All policy. He's going to talk about some other aspects of Medicare for All and national healthcare policy. So we're going to let them talk for a few minutes each, and then we're going to try and hold the questions, and then we'll do a long part at the end, a Q&A for any questions that you all might have for our experts here. All right? Thanks so much.
Thank you. Again, I'm Dr. Victoria Dooley. I'm a healthcare activist and practicing family medicine physician. And the Senator Sanders, he caught my attention in 2016 with 6 words. He said, healthcare is a human right. I said that I really felt that being a physician and seeing this epidemic that we have of people who are getting underinsured. Not only is uninsurance a problem, but here in the U.S. we have an epidemic of being underinsured. Everybody's co-pays, deductibles, etc. are rising. I'm having more and more patients tell me, Dr. Dooley, I'm not going to be able to see you as much as I wanted to because my employer has shifted to a high deductible plan. Just yesterday, I had a lovely young lady in my office, and she had suffered 2 separate cancers last year, a colon cancer and a uterine cancer. And because she had a $6,500 deductible, she was out of $6,500 last year. So she's still paying off medical bills. And because she had 2 cancers and she had to have surgeries, and now she's a little bit weak from the cancer and the surgeries, I wanted to have her go to physical therapy to increase her strength and her balance, just so she won't fall and break a leg on the ice that we have here in Michigan. And she told me, Dr. Dooley, I'm sorry, I just can't afford it right now. I am still paying off my debt from all my cancer-related bills. My deductible is $6,000. So in this country, we don't need more insurance. And so that's a problem with people saying public option, which is where we keep private insurance in the mix, or Medicare for all who want it, which also keeps these private insurances in the mix. We do not need more health insurance companies in this nation. We need one insurance that's going to be comprehensive and that's going to cover everybody for everything. And the only way to make sure all people are covered, even with the Affordable Care Act, children are allowed to be on their parents' insurance till they're 26. But then what? We had Alex Smith, who was rationing insulin here, and died because after his 26th birthday, he couldn't afford his insulin. And I see things like this all the time. These are insufficient solutions to our problems. We do not need to build on the Affordable Care Act, which is still leaving people dying from rationing insulin. We need a whole new system, and that system is Medicare for All, because if everyone is included in medical coverage, there is nobody that could be excluded. Nobody who is poor, nobody who is Native, nobody who is black, nobody who is brown, nobody who just turned 26 can be excluded if everyone is included in the current healthcare system. And I had you guys are students, all students, right? Everybody's student here? Almost everybody. And another problem with our insurance that we have now is, if you're on your parents' insurance, which is a good thing that you can stay on there while you go to college, but if your parents' insurance is based out of one particular state and you go to another state for school, that same insurance might not be as good and as accepted in the state that you're in. I had a young man, it was a son of one of my patients, and he went to college. I believe it was Colorado or somewhere. So he was on his parents' insurance. However, where he went to school on the other side of the country, it wasn't a really well-known insurance plan in that state. So the young man, he suffered with some mental illness and depression and anxiety, ended up being hospitalized for a suicidal attempt. So his father brought him back home. And the main reason this happened was because he couldn't find healthcare providers who would accept his insurance, which was a big insurance in Michigan, but it wasn't a big insurance where he was. So it was a little bit of wait to get him in to see a psychiatrist. So his dad brought him in to see me, and I said, well, let's get some blood work, make sure there's nothing going on medically that we can treat while we're waiting for you to get to see your psychiatrist. So I ordered some blood tests. I didn't think they were the ultimate cause of his depression, but there are absolutely some medical things that can make depression and anxiety worse. And so when I got the blood test back, I'm like, maybe we can fix this. Maybe we can work on this thyroid issue and some other issues that will help make their depression better. It's not going to cure it, but while he's waiting to see the psychiatrist, let's work on these physical things. So I called the young man and I said, I'd like to talk to you about your blood test. Can you come in today? He said, no, I can't come in today, Dr. Dooley. What about tomorrow? I got, I'm doing some things with my dad. I can't come in tomorrow. I'm like, okay. Let's say this was Monday. You can come in Monday or Tuesday. I'm like, okay, can you come in Wednesday? Yes, I will see you Wednesday. So Wednesday rolls around, and I will never forget, this is the first and only time that I've had the police call me to cancel an appointment for a patient. The police called me. They said, John's parents just wanted you to know that he will not be making his appointment today because he hung himself in the basement. The day he was supposed to come back to see me for his medical appointment to see if we could work on some things to fix his depression and anxiety. I have to believe that if we had one universal system of health care that John could have used in the state he was at, that was accepted by any provider, that this tragedy wouldn't have happened. He would have gotten help that he needed while he was at school. And so these are why we do not need more insurance. We need one insurance that works for everybody, no matter where they are in this country. Thank you.
When you hear stories like that, you got to wonder why. Why do we have a system where the care that you get is based on your ability to pay, or based on whether an insurance company decides you can get that care? Who in the hell would invent that system? And the truth is, there is a real historical reason why we have this system, and that is because during World War II, wages were frozen in the United States because of the war economy. And yet there was inflation, workers were under quite a bit of pressure and demanding increased wages despite the law. Employers and the government weren't going to do that, so they decided instead, we'll give you health insurance. And the government agreed, yeah, that's a great idea. We won't tax the value of the health insurance. We'll tax your wages, as we do. But essentially, if you think about it, what employers pay for health insurance is like wages, just a different form of compensation. But they said, no, we won't tax that compensation. And so that created a huge incentive for employer-based private insurance. Now, that was okay as long as the insurance companies were nonprofit and healthcare wasn't that expensive. And that was the case for a couple of decades. And remember, union density was like 35% at this time. So most people had jobs. But of course, there were huge gaps, and those gaps slowly over time revealed themselves, including seniors who were being impoverished and dying because they couldn't afford health care, including low-income folks who didn't have employer-based insurance because those tended to be workers of color. White workers were more highly employed in jobs that provided health insurance. Workers of color were not. So, and we also knew that healthcare was getting more expensive. So they, through the civil rights movement and the labor movement, and work with the Johnson administration, we established Medicare. Medicare desegregated many, really hundreds of American hospitals. It's a direct result of the civil rights movement and the labor movement coming together with a Democratic president to broaden coverage. And the demand, based really going back to Truman, FDR, was for universal health care, but we didn't get there. Which was, in some ways, for some people like Alex and your patient, Doc, was a fatal flaw. Because people have been dying, tens of thousands of people literally have been dying every year since because they don't have insurance and they're not covered. But low-income people did do better under Medicaid. Obviously, seniors did better under Medicare, but something crucial happened in 1980, and that's when Ronald Reagan was elected, and history tells us that the healthcare went from a caregiving system to an industry. That's a fundamental difference. All of a sudden, the insurance companies were becoming for-profit. The hospitals were consolidating into corporations. No longer were they community institutions, they became corporate entities. Mayo is the best example. Mayo Clinic, a nonprofit hospital in Minnesota, made $1 billion in net income last year. What is net income? Net income is profit. What is profit? The money they didn't spend on patient care. So one of the foremost medical centers in the country, based in Minnesota, earns $1 billion a year that we're all paid for, that they don't spend on patients. And they're a hospital. That's an industry model. So what we're really doing with Medicare for All is restoring the caregiving system based upon the values of kindness and caring, community. Those values that are at the heart of what you would do if you designed a healthcare system to actually meet the needs of people. So when Doc talks about no copays, no premiums, no deductibles, we eliminate those barriers to care that prevent us, that are basically rationing care based on ability to pay. And at the heart of the system, as I said, is what I like to call, because I worked for the nurses for 25 years, nurses' values. That you accept patients as you find them. So folks, regardless of immigration status, are covered. You accept patients as you find them and you treat them with human dignity, because what caregiving is a recognition of our humanity, of our human kindness. We are kind to each other because we are of a kind. And when you create a national healthcare system that guarantees healthcare for everybody, you create a sense of social solidarity, that we have created the system so it's there for you and it's there for me, and we take care of each other. Why is it the heart of the Senator's campaign? Because that notion, not me, not us, fight for someone you don't know, social solidarity, that's the alternative to a profit-driven system that kills 68,000 people a year. Yeah, we will save $450 billion going to Medicare for All. And next time someone says, well, how can we pay for it? Say, if it costs less, it's more affordable. That's how it works. That's right. I kept hearing about math during the debate talk. That is math. I will leave you with that math. But ultimately, the math that works is the math that ends up taking care of people and saving lives. So thanks for coming out today.